Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hello, and happy snow day. It is snowing outside right now, and what I'm hoping is it snows and then it melts. It's gonna be beautiful. So welcome. Happy Monday. Did I say that already? I don't think so. I said happy snow day. I'm excited for this week because I have another guest that I'm going to be interviewing for the show. So I'm going to be interviewing Tiffany Hook, which some of you may know who are local to my area. She's the director of services for Loudon Serenity House in Leesburg, Virginia. And she's one of my friends. So I'm really excited. She has a lot of experience in peer recovery support. She's a peer recovery specialist. She earned her bachelor's in psychology in December 2022, certified peer recovery specialist in 2023, and she's a registered peer recovery specialist and certified as a qualified mental health professional. So this is pretty exciting. I think I'm starting to dig having guests. I've always wanted to have guests, but my symptoms from my post-stroke, I just haven't been able to handle it. So maybe I'm doing too much. You guys who are lifetime listeners know that I happen to do that quite often. And then I end up in bed. I think today is one of those days, actually. But I'm still excited. So I'm going to keep doing it as long, maybe one guest a week if I can manage that. And it's just going to be nice to have some new personality in. And we can learn a lot more about recovery from all different types of disorders. So our last guest, if you were able to catch the episode, we focused on OCD. And I learned a lot from her and from that episode, and I continue to learn a lot from peer recovery support research. So we will hopefully get Tiffany's episode live on Friday. So her and I are going to sit down Thursday night. I should be able to make that live on Friday. So we will welcome her. I'm very excited about that. Today, I wanted to talk to you about pain being a process. And it's not the end of the story. It's not the end of your story. So the reason why I wanted to talk about that this morning, because I showed up to my 8 a.m. Sobriety meeting, and there was a lot of vulnerability in there this morning, a lot of pain, a lot of pain. And it reminded me of back when I was drinking and some of the extremely painful stuff outside of the drinking, but just life happening that I experienced and what it felt like. That's what I want to focus on here, is what that feels like when we're going through hard things. It feels like pain is permanent. And what that makes me think about is my current example would be stroke recovery. That I had the stroke and I have a disability because of the stroke. And that disability, as much as I have tried to go to therapy and find medications, find help, that disability is permanent. There is no cure for what I have. And Although, so it makes me think like, well, wait a minute, some pain is permanent. Well, my headache might be permanent, but the emotions fluctuate even when the circumstances don't. So the emotional experience around hard stuff is fluid. So sometimes the hard things themselves move, but very much our emotional response to the hard things are never static, for sure. I've heard a lot in recovery and in learning about meditation. Sometimes they say, like, imagine your emotions like the weather or like the clouds, and they just go by. And it's our job to not attach ourselves to any of them, but let them pass, see them as fluid. Um, as long as I am willing to look at the pain, right? That's like the very first step, is to even acknowledge it. I remember for so long when I was in active alcoholism that I wouldn't even look at it. I didn't think that I could do anything about my situation. So I let the situation sit there, and I let the pain around the situation sit there. So it just became what I call, it took residence in my dark place, like deep down inside, where it just literally ached. It literally just made my stomach hurt. It gave me an ulcer. Like, I had so many physical reactions from holding on to the pain. Um, when I was able to get that pain validated, like, I finally reached the point of unmanageability, like realizing I cannot manage my life. My life is unmanageable. I cannot take it. I'm dying. I am dying on the inside. And in turn, physically dying. I was really executing a slow suicide of myself by drinking. And when I finally reached my bottom, and we're all different, I reached out for help, and I immediately got validation for that pain. I could go to 10 million therapists, and that validation did not matter to me. What mattered to me was having somebody else who has felt that same exact pain, somebody has been through the exact same thing, having them validate the pain. And that's what um, we were talking about in the last episode on OCD. We were talking about peer recovery specialist work, and we'll be talking about that again with Tiffany if the conversation goes in that direction, which I suspect it will. But having a peer who has experienced exactly the same type of pain. Maybe the circumstances were slightly different, but the pain feels the same. And when we can start expressing that to each other, it gets validated. So the that's the first step. And then the emotional journey then is able to evolve. Once I invite somebody else into my corner on Team Rachel, then my capacity to fight back expands. My interpretation of the conditions that I'm living under my my relationship to those conditions changes. It evolves, it matures. So in sobriety and stroke recovery, what I have felt that was completely unbearable and at one time was completely unmanageable, I was able to start adapting my self, if this makes sense, adapting my behavior, adapting my thought process, adapting my ability to communicate to become, allow it to become manageable. The only way I could do that was to invite other people in. Um, so that growth happens very slowly and quietly. When I heard these people this morning talking about real stuff, some of the worst things a human being can ever face, it felt like I'm listening and I'm like, I just want to change it. I want to make their pain go away. And the unfortunate part of it is the only way to the other side of the pain is through it. And that takes time. That's why they call it a season, hard seasons. Um, all I can do from where I sit when I hear somebody else's pain is to offer myself, to offer my experiences, to share what the pain felt like for me. And that's why I'm so freaking compassionate about doing that in this podcast because um, there's not a lot of places that you can go. Um, let me correct myself. It feels like there's not a lot of places that you can go where people talk about hard stuff, where people get vulnerable enough to talk about their fears, to talk about the ego that keeps them from fighting back. Because the ego, at least for me, my ego feels like it protects me from my fears, when really what it's doing is keeping me from addressing my fears. And what I heard in, I think, another meeting, maybe last week or the week before, I heard somebody say, I'm a fear factory. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a good way of saying it. Like, I just generate fear. And when I think about where I am today, when I think about my stroke recovery, when I think about other people in my life that are going through hard things, real hard things, um, my fear wants to narrate what my future looks like. And then my ego wants to dramatize the present, you know? My character defects that I have, um, and it's still an ongoing process, noticed in sobriety, want my suffering to become permanent. I don't know why that is, but my character defects want like tell me that what you're going through right now is it's always going to be that way, you know? And again, it's hard for me to try to articulate, like, I know that I'm permanently disabled, but my character defects, depression, my anxiety, the stuff that keeps me in fear, it's telling me that the way you're handling your disability today, you're always going to handle it this way. You can't get better at it. And that's not true. I can get better at it. Um, my character, my character defects tell me, see, this is what you deserve. You deserve to feel this way. You are destined to always be miserable. You're destined to not be happy. Happiness is for other people. My character defects, you know how you tend to always think of the worst? Well, my character defects are like, see, see, the worst is what always happens. And I don't have to drag those character defects with me every time I go through something hard. I can acknowledge hard stuff. I can acknowledge fear. It doesn't mean I'm not going to ever feel fear, but I don't have to let it be the author of my life. I don't have to be bitter or feel like, well, this is just the way it always is going to be for me. I don't have to do that. Um, there is a tendency, for some reason, I have a tendency to get comfortable in pain. Um, I don't know what, like I've been sitting it is really snowing outside. It's absolutely beautiful. Here, I have to show you. See that? Its picture doesn't do it justice, but it's really coming down out there. It's beautiful. I have to walk out there. I bet it's like totally silent. Um, and that's the thing, right? I can go out there and experience the joy, but my character defects sometimes are like, oh, look how beautiful it is out there. Well, it's going to be over soon. It'll be done before I'm able to go out there and stand in the quiet and enjoy it. Like my, my character defects just, I guess, pain feels familiar. Struggles feel familiar. Struggles are more predictable to me than joy. Like, joy makes me feel like I am just a fish out of water because I've spent so much of the first half of my life. I'm 51. So the first half of my life, depressed, anxious, drunk, um, all the negative stuff. I spent a lot of time sitting in that. And that instability, that it feels like I'm like sitting in a pool of yuckiness. And I'm so used to sitting in that pool of yuckiness. There's a strange comfort in unhappiness. I think because I don't have to be vulnerable to sit in yuck. I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to look at it. I can turn out the lights and throw a blanket over my head and it just gets comfortable in there. And in order to be joyous, I've got to do work. I've got to like dig in there and pull out the yucky stuff. I have to open my mouth. I have to talk about it. But that is the process. Pain is a process. It's not supposed to be something that we sink into. It's supposed to be something that we pick up and we share it with our fellow humans among human beings. Share it so that we can all grow from it. And when I share it, it expands my tolerance for pain. Does that make sense? it I'm able to tolerate more hard stuff when I share it with other people. Um, and then that makes space for me to sit in good stuff, to notice good stuff. I mean, I spent so long not even noticing what was going on around me. I remember the first year that I was sober. Um, I would drive to work. I had an hour and a half drive, and I was going on, for those of you in the local area, I drove from Charlestown, West Virginia to Herndon, Virginia. So in rush hour, that was an hour and a half both ways. So I drove back on the over the mountain, and I just started noticing beautiful things. I started noticing the little animals, and I started noticing the houses and the people. I don't know, the birds, all of the stuff that I was totally oblivious to because I was so focused on inside, focused inward. And once I got sober, I was able to allow the good stuff to happen without bracing myself for some sort of collapse, you know? Um, Growth and joy requires intentional practice. Um, I have to, I have to seek it. And I'm kind of pausing because I'm thinking about like one thing that I do every day, and I've mentioned this a million times, is I wake up in the morning and acknowledge I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Today I went to the art club in my new neighborhood, and we got to share one thing that was interesting about ourselves, or something that nobody else knows. So, you know me, I recover out loud. So, my thing was I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor, and I am the host of the Recovery Daily podcast. And when we were filling out the forms, I heard somebody say, so everybody got a piece of paper and all of the interesting things were written down. So you had to like pick the name and put it on the sheet by who you thought that interesting thing belonged to. So I heard somebody say while everybody was filling out the sheet, side note, I had to give my sheet back because it was too many words and it was hurting my head. So I couldn't play the game, even though I was looking forward to the game. I didn't know anybody anyway. But I heard somebody say, how am I supposed to know who's a recovering alcoholic? And for a hot second, I felt stupid that I put that on there. Um, that I just walked into a room of strangers and wrote what for many people would be the most vulnerable thing you could possibly say about yourself. But then I sat back and I felt proud because as I said earlier, I have to share my pain so that I can help another person through their process. Um, you don't find a lot of people that would walk into a room full of strangers and say they are a grateful recovering alcoholic. But you know what? It's important to me. for people to know that because after everything that I've been through, it is the thing. No, it's not my identity, but it is my purpose. And that's a completely different thing. I live for recovery, in recovery, and for recovery. And it's important to me. And if there's any person in that room who can relate, then they know that I'm available. They know that I am somebody who can help them through a process, a recovery process, whether it's sobriety, whether it's stroke recovery, whether it's anything hard, because I got vulnerable and I said the hard stuff. So, I was thinking before I hit record that I was thrown a life raft almost 10 years ago. Next month, it will be 10 years. And my life raft was Alcoholics Anonymous. But a life raft can take the form of anything for anybody else. Um, But the one thing, like it can be a support group, it can be a therapist, a sponsor, a friend, a faith community, a rehab program, which I also participated in. Anyone can throw you a life raft. But that's what I was gonna say is someone, a human being, throws the life raft. That's the only way that I am aware of that we can get a hold of a life raft. A person has to throw it to us. Even if your life raft is faith, someone in the faith community throws it to you. We don't ever go through life without any human contact, you know. Receiving help requires participation from other people. However, it's our job to reach for the raft, to catch it, to hold on to it. And even when we're staying in the hard stuff, we're swimming in that pool of yuck, um, we could still hold on to it long enough for the rescue to unfold. Um, the life rafts are us, you know, it's each other. And it lets us know that we're not alone, that we're not powerless. Um, that's why we need to help each other through the processes. My brother called me yesterday because a very good close friend of his for over a decade, sorry, had a stroke. And I felt honored that my brother and my sister-in-law called me to ask questions. This is not the first time my brother has called me to ask questions about something hard that he's going through. And I don't love that he's going through hard things, but I love that he considers me somebody that he can ask questions, that he trusts me and respects me enough to listen to how I processed my own pain and how I didn't let my pain get the final word. That I was able to stand up and say, my pain is not permanent, and my fears are not my destiny, and my character defects are not my identity. And I chose not to drag all of the hard stuff with me forward. Um, I made decisions along the way, small decisions to process my pain. And recovery is absolutely full of waves and ups and downs. But with the right tools, with each other, we learn how to float. And that's what I've got for you today. I am going to go outside and stand in the silent snow. There is nothing more amazing. All right, maybe there's other things that are more amazing. But it's really cool when it's snowing, as much as it is right now, and stand out there and it is just silent. So I'm excited. I'm going to go do that. And thanks for listening. I will talk to you next time.